America does not have an America First foreign policy, despite what Donald Trump says. America has an Israel First foreign policy.
Hard to refute that. Words from Jeffrey Sachs, who recently appeared on Andrew Napolitano's podcast, talking about Israel's recent strike in Iran, what it means for the U.S., how culpable the U.S. government is, why Trump actually seems to be at odds with Tulsi Gabbard on this question to some extent. So I can't wait to hear what he says. He's one of the best geopolitical analysts in the world. Let's watch and let's react. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Fair to say, Professor Sachs, that as he was uttering those very words, CIA, MI6, and Mossad were preparing the dastardly and unprovoked attack that Israel visited upon Iran last week?
Certainly, Mossad is in the lead. It's assassination and murder unit number one. But Mossad effectively has determined U.S. policy for decades, and Trump is falling into line. So it's quite amazing to see one president after another falls into line with the Murder Incorporated led by Israel.
Yeah, it's hard to deny they wanted Iraq overthrown in 2003. They wanted Saddam replaced. They wanted Gaddafi replaced. They wanted Assad replaced. They even wanted the U.S. to bomb Yemen throughout the last few years because Yemen dared to want to support the Palestinians with humanitarian aid. So yeah, Sachs is right.
He said those words. You and I and others on the show rejoiced. An American president condemning the neocons, an American president condemning military adventurism and intervention into foreign countries. It was a charade. It was a facade. It was a deception.
We don't know exactly what happened between then and now in one sense. I think President Putin in 2017 expressed something that we all learn as well. He knew it in 2017 in an interview with Le Figaro that he gave. He said, "I've dealt with many American presidents. They come into office with ideas, but then men in dark suits and briefcases wearing blue ties show up and explain to them the world the way that it will be. And so you never hear of those ideas again." So I can't peer into the inner thinking of Trump, but everything he's saying and doing today violates what he said last month. And in the end, we know that our foreign policy is governed by a deep state apparatus, the CIA, Mossad, MI6, as you said. And we know that the actions that occur, for example, Ukraine's attack on Russia's strategic nuclear bombers, had the same provenance, that is the same authors as Israel's attack in Tehran last week. Same methods, same crates carrying drones inside a country to make a decapitation strike or to make a strategic strike. So Mossad was involved in both the Ukraine operation and in the Tehran operation.
Yeah, absolutely. The continuity in U.S. foreign policy is striking, despite all the theatrics, all the at-your-throat jabs and the debates and, you know, she'd be in jail if I was president. Those moments are all illusory. These presidents have generally followed the same foreign policy strategy, at least my entire lifetime, and really since World War II in many regards. Maybe in some ways before that, because you had the Wilsonian project of exporting democracy throughout the world that has been just such a catastrophic failure for everyone. And we see that now with Trump. There was reason to believe that Trump was going to be a little bit more non-interventionist than some of his predecessors. He showed that to some extent in his first term. I'm a little bit more critical than some people on that because he escalated wars in both Syria and Yemen at that time, and increased bombing for a time in Afghanistan there too. But he didn't launch a new war. That was his line. That was the line that all of his supporters said. But it seems like these people get under the grip of the Israel lobby, the deep state, that want these regime change operations regardless. And when they want them now. I think that's what we're seeing with Iran.
Last week. Now, we've discussed in recent weeks, what did Trump know when? I have no idea. What did the CIA know? Well, of course it knew. It was involved in all of this. Who leads all of this? Mossad, I would say. It's weird, but it's actually true. America does not have an America First foreign policy, despite what Donald Trump says. America has an Israel First foreign policy. It happens that Israel's foreign policy is completely reckless, dangerous, and delusional. And it has been that way for decades.
Yeah, really scathing comments, but it's truly hard to deny the U.S. has gotten involved in all sorts of wars Israel wants, and, it's going to align with the neocon agenda here. We know that the clean break memo that Wesley Clark watched as he waltzed into the Pentagon 10 days after 9/11, he saw regime change operation plans for 7 countries in 5 years. The 7th of those is Iran, the only one yet to come, and now it seems like that's underway. So that's been desired the entire time. Israel's wanted that the entire time. Netanyahu in particular has wanted that the entire time. He said it openly to Congress. As soon as a few months ago, he said he wanted the Libya model to apply to Iran. That's regime change. What happened to Gaddafi? He got ousted in a U.S.-led NATO effort, and then he was massacred in a really brutal way that I don't even want to describe verbally. So that's where we're at. Like my friend Tom Woods says, no matter who you vote for, you always get John McCain. And, I can't blame people for supporting Trump over Harris to some regard, but man, it sure seems like we just get the same neocon formula no matter what in terms of foreign policy.
I was going to say for 30 years, that's the time span of Netanyahu, who is the current most despicable person on the planet, in my view, because he's the greatest war progenitor of them all. But it actually goes back beyond 30 years. This is a long-term plan for Israel to have its way in the Middle East. And the way that Netanyahu has explained it repeatedly for 30 years, for anyone who cares to read his books and articles and watch his speeches, and it's painful, but it's actually worth doing, because he tells you what his modus operandi is. And the modus operandi is that we will do what we want in the Middle East, and if any government in the region objects, we will overthrow that government. But when he says we, he's very nice. It's his U.S. buddies that will do it. The U.S. will spend trillions of dollars and lives and the utter destruction of world trust in the United States to do this extremist Zionist bidding. And Netanyahu has been right. The U.S. has done his bidding up until now.
Yeah, I got to agree. I hate the fact that it seems like Trump, even if his earnest desire was to negotiate with the Iranians concerning their nuclear weapons program, to the extent that that even exists, Tulsi Gabbard doesn't say that it exists even. She said there was no evidence they reconstituted it. But if that was Trump's desire and Ukraine came in opportunistically in this timed attack to sabotage that, and Trump is still decides to play along with that despite the fact it undermined U.S. foreign policy goals, that would be the worst scenario, I think. Either way, we're in the war with Iran, whether Trump was in on this, how long ago he was in on this or not. But in any regard, he was duped by Israel. It's an Israel first foreign policy. Truly is. No question. This is the top foreign policy crown jewel of the Likud party, the Zionist lobby, the Israel lobby, AIPAC, Netanyahu, you name it. And I think a lot of it is designed to take eyes off of what is happening in Gaza, which is truly criminal. It's a war crimes. It's a genocide. If you want to debate that, it kind of takes away from the true kind of important thing in terms of policy, and that's that the U.S. shouldn't bankroll that. It shouldn't be involved whatsoever. So
we know that there was a plan already hatched decades ago, but unveiled to the former NATO commander, General Wesley Clark, in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, which said 7 wars in 5 years. And those 7 countries were Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Somalia, Sudan, Libya, and Iran. And the U.S. has been engaged in 6 of those 7 wars till now, a long plan, delayed, by the way, because every one of those turned into a complete debacle compared to what Bibi promised us all the time, how wonderful these wars would be.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't that brazen for the deep state to lay these plans out? They got exposed by Wesley Clark in, I think, either 2003 or 2004. I think it was when he was running for president that term that this got exposed. And the deep state was still so brazen in military establishment as to still work to carry these out. Like the writing was already on the wall. This should have been the biggest journalism story in the world, the biggest news story ever, covered by true journalists everywhere, but we don't have a lot of true journalists, and we had even less of them back then. Thankfully, we have shows like this. We have, Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone. We got Aaron Mattei. We got Jeffrey Sachs. We got Mearsheimer to talk about this. We have true anti-war dissidents that cover this and expose this now. Before we didn't, but this is exactly true.
And now we're in the 7th war, finally. And Donald Trump has fallen completely into line as of today. It's amazing to watch. It's terrifying to watch.
It really is. Israel isn't any kind of ally that I would want to have where the relationship is never reciprocated. We just get sucked into their wars. They don't send us money. We send them money for fruitless wars that never pay off. And they don't even pretend that they paid off anymore. When's the last time you've heard Netanyahu say, looking back, Iraq was such a smashing success that you removed Saddam? He doesn't. He's just on to the next regime change, as he is now with Iran. The U.S. is caught up on it, and there's no denying it. Trump can say, hey, we're not directly involved, but you are directly involved. You're giving Israel your intelligence, you're funding Israel, and you're using interceptor missiles. We would say that Russia was at war with us if they did that to us. So, yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
Watch. It would be nice if we had an America First foreign policy.
I want to ask you about the consequences to American diplomacy of this kind of deception. But before we do, there's an interesting back and forth between a reporter, I don't know who, and President Trump on Air Force One last night. And she asks President Trump about Director of National Security Gabbard's statement under oath that the intelligence community has concluded that Iran does not have and is not building a nuclear weapon. Watch this, cut number 13.
You've always said that you don't believe Iran should be able to have a nuclear weapon, but how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified at March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon.
I care what she said. I think they were very close to having.
Listen to that. He doesn't care how close they were to getting a nuclear weapon. Or he doesn't care what Tulsi Gabbard said, how close they were to getting a nuclear weapon. Tulsi Gabbard was handpicked by him. That's his director of national intelligence. And he went to war over that, by the way. She was considered a controversial pick because she didn't exactly toe the CIA line when it came to countries like Ukraine. And she's not perfect on foreign policy by any stretch, but she much more was than some of the previous occupants of that position, the Pompeos of the world, certainly. So for Trump to say literally he doesn't care what she says, he thinks they were close, what expertise does he have in that? And by the way, I would never agree with the U.S. intelligence community and the CIA as a default, but it's worth pointing out that they are the entity most likely to drum up these false weapons of mass destruction allegations. We saw that in 2003, that's for sure, in 2002 for that matter. So this is honestly quite crazy and surprising to me a little bit about Trump. I mean, he's known for his rhetoric, he's known for his bombacity, but for him to essentially throw his director of national intelligence under the bus like this and just come out with this Trump-oriented policy that kind of refutes his own director, that is mind-boggling.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having one. How profoundly irresponsible is a statement unsupported by any evidence like that?
This is how the U.S. government acts and has acted for decades. Donald Trump is not alone in this. There was a famous interview back in around 2003 where one of the George Bush Jr. top advisors said, when he asked about the real situation, he explained to the reporter, "We make our own reality and you report on it."
Yeah.
And this is the view of government that has become nothing more than PR and bomb. That's what the U.S. government is. They have their own narrative. They smirk when they say it. They're uninterested in anything truthful at all. And they believe that the weapons are the only determinant of reality in the end. You know, this whole approach is repeatedly put to the test. The whole idea that it is the weapons that create the truth, not the rhetoric, not the analysis, not the actual events, but the weapons that create the truth, is found to be wanting. That's been true for a long time in human history, but it's found to be wanting month after month, year after year in our current circumstances. Netanyahu has left behind a wasteland. It's the old expression of Tacitus. They create a desert and they call it peace. This is Netanyahu. He's been the champion of overthrowing Gaddafi. Now there has been 14 years of violence and death and destruction in Libya. He was the proponent of overthrowing the governments in Sudan, in Somalia, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq, and now quite explicitly in Iran. Now, the wars that have occurred have been complete disasters.
Yeah, he's right. I mean, totally love the reference to the famous Roman historian Tacitus, by the way. Well worth studying if you're into that era, but he's totally right about them drumming up these narratives, and that becomes the new truth of the state. It becomes part of America's civil religion, where you are revering this narrative based upon what's being shoved down your throats by the military-industrial complex, the deep state, the corporate media, which is totally aligned with all this nonsense, and then that's just put forward as if that's some new truth that you just continue to repeat, even despite your own intelligence community going against it. The idea that Trump's just going to ignore Tulsi Gabbard regarding Iran's nuclear capabilities. What did you do appointing her to office if not to trust her? Well, there's other interests in play that are stronger than those that tell the truth on war and war propaganda. See, our overlords know that Americans aren't generally inclined to support wars, and that's why they need the propaganda machine to push them once they're in power after they win election, mostly on the rhetoric that they don't want to get in these wars.
So this is the empirical record. They don't care about the empirical record. It doesn't touch them. These are powerful people whose families are not being bombed, whose relatives are not being killed. These are kind of, underworld dons that think that violence just runs the show. So they don't care about the truth. There's no analysis here. There never is these days. There's no honesty in any statement that anybody makes.
Yeah, he's right. It's just PR and bomb campaigns. He's right.
After all, the day before the Israel attack, the U.S. government statements were, we're having the next round of negotiations with Iran
right
this Sunday. This was in a context of ongoing negotiations. And then suddenly a massive murder attack by Mossad.
Yeah, I believe they left the Iranian diplomats just standing there, and I believe it was Bahrain. And it seems to be that at this point, Trump was aware this was going to happen. So he was in on it at least a few days in advance. To what extent he was beyond that, it's a little bit murky right now. But in either direction, this seriously undermined what was genuinely believed to be the foreign policy objective of the U.S., to take off the table the pretext that now Netanyahu and Trump are using to promote this strike.
No one says, oh, but we were going to have negotiations. It's taken for granted. Well, that was I knew that, of course. What kind of behavior is this? Maybe it's a behavior of the underworld, but it's not a behavior in which the overworld can survive, frankly.
Chris put together a montage. There it is. And it reminds me of that phrase from my friend, the Columbia University historian, Tom Woods. No matter who you vote for, you end up with John McCain.
I said that, yeah.
This has been the deep consistency. You end up with the unnamed and unknown CIA-led foreign policy. CIA-led foreign policy has the advantage that it's unaccountable. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to review what's happened. You don't look at the record of Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia, Sudan. You never review it. You just move forward, after all. More deaths, more killing, more regime change. We're in the middle of it right now, but it's the big one. This is a country with more than 90 million people, and it has powerful allies, and Netanyahu's madness and Trump's complicity is, yeah, sure, let's kill all the top leaders and we'll have a happy show. Mission accomplished, like that banner just showed.
Yeah, he's right. We're seeing a repeat of what happened in 2003. Basically, the complete line is exactly the same. Some of the players promoting it are exactly the same. The neocons that sold us the war in Iraq are now saying, hey, you know, this version of weapons of mass destruction in the wrong hands is going to be treacherous. It's going to mean the end of Israel and the U.S. They're chanting. Their chants are threatening to America. The death to America chants. They want to convince you that those chants are more endangering to us than our regime change operations overseas that bankrupt the treasury, that lead to all this debt and destruction, and these regimes that get replaced by worse ones on our behalf, and 1 million people die along the way like they did in Iraq. That's what we're seeing playing out again. People are cheering right now, mission accomplished, in the same way too. It's really alarming and eerie and quite ironic when you see that mission accomplished banner that was on that aircraft carrier that George Bush was on. I remember this vividly. And I was a dumb neocon at the time, by the way, if you can believe that. I probably said that a few times on this channel, but I supported that nonsense, and it's embarrassing now. But what I remember from those times is how much people celebrated, not knowing that there'd be 20 additional years in which thousands of U.S. troops died, the U.S. continued to pour money into Iraq to spread democracy in the system that was immediately overthrown, and now fundamentalists rule Iraq. So we're seeing that play out again in Iran. The U.S. is sucked in regardless of what Trump says. It's not our war. It's not our fight. It's not America first. This is Israel first foreign policy. It's not what we should accept, and it's not anything that the true America first movement wants. But I do want to hear from you guys. What do you think about this? How culpable is the U.S. in this war? Can they disentangle from it without cutting all ties to Israel? Let me know in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and consider becoming a YouTube member or Patreon patron if you want to support the channel. I'd really appreciate that. That helps me continue to do videos. So until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.